Color class is starting today, so it's kind of exciting because I haven't taught color class since last year. That's good funny. It's January. So we have a basic curriculum for you to go through and certify through, and then once you're certified in it, certification means that you are capable of taking a paying guest with some assistance. Meaning you should be able to formulate a plan for your guest, do a thorough consultation, and complete the 6 steps. Are you familiar with what the 6 steps are? Okay, so by the end of today, you're going to know what they are, and you're going to start you probably know what they are without knowing what they are. You've probably just never been told the 6 steps.
Right. Okay.
So in a brief format, the 6 steps are the steps of service that we give to every guest to guarantee great service. So you've seen them in action, you just don't know how they're labeled, and so you're probably already doing some of them. So that being said, when you're done with your models is when you're informed whether you need to do another model, whether you need to recertify, what that looks like. So if you have that calendar in front of you, it's in Slack, I posted it there, yes?
Yes.
So I believe we're looking at from today to February 24th is your commitment. There are 2 model days, the 27th and the 24th, January 27th and 24th. On the 27th, there are some models already. If you cannot find a retouch model, there are some intact. If you are not making one of these classes, we need to formulate a plan, or you need to not commit. So my commitment is to be here to all of them. Your commitment is to be here as well. It is, what, 6 weeks? Mm-hmm. As of right now, I'm not going to allow anything to interfere with this because cutting got crazy and things got added. So these are set in stone, so I need your 6-week commitment. If there's going to be a challenge, you need to let me know. All classes are generally 10 to 2, and you can bring models at 1 o'clock on that day if you are working on something that you need assistance on.
Any of them?
Any of them. If you want to bring a model at 1 o'clock, you have to be done by 3.
Okay.
So whatever your model is, you start promptly at 1, and you're done by 3. We're not doing color corrections. It's nothing. It's things that you need practice on. So you guys can bring any haircuts that you've already been through that you want to work on. You can bring in retouches and blow dries.
I have a few people.
So you can be bringing in blow dries, and after this class, you can bring in retouches. And then when you go through cutting, we'll move to that.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So you could offer a model, a retouch, and a blow dry after this class.
Okay.
Next week is formulation. So today we're talking about application. Next week we're talking about what goes in the bowl. If you miss one of these classes, you miss the meat of color. It doesn't make sense to continue through color. So it's imperative that you're at these 2 classes. So you can speak with me privately if it's a challenge, but that's like the commitment I need from you. I am here every Monday, and I come in at 9. If you need additional assistance, you can have my attention from 9 to 10, or you can bring your model at 1 and get additional attention from that time. Okay? What you put into this, you will get out of this. If you are not certified by the time you leave, then it may be that you still need work on foiling, and we'll formulate a plan for certification. May need that you need to work on formulation, and we'll formulate a plan for certification. Whatever that looks like, because you're all at different levels. But the goal to be certified looks like this. You can walk up front, you can greet a guest, you can educate a guest, you can provide a professional service with very little assistance. And by that I mean you can walk in the back, ask a question, get an answer, and take that answer and apply it. You can't, oh, I need help. Can you cut this? Oh, I need help. Can you put this foil in? It has to be where you're formulating from the beginning to the end professionally. Now everybody's at different levels, so it may mean that you get certified in some things and not in others. Once you go through the classes, you may take advantage of Mondays when you're out of the classes. So looking past February, there's no salons, well, you guys don't work at the Village. So Bayfront and Promenade is not open on Mondays. So once you complete the 6 weeks, You can take advantage of Mondays and you can be using this half of the salon as your own for models until you're really where you need to be. But it's your choice. How much are you putting into it? We are in season and everyone uses that as an excuse. They're already working so hard. Okay, I would like to be busy all year, not just season. So Monday to me is a work day. It is a day for you to put into your career personally outside of being the assistant. I don't want you to be assistants. That's not your goal. That's not what you went to school for. And Mondays is where you can apply that. What questions do you have? Okay, if you have concerns about the schedule, see me later. Okay, so I want you to, we're going to go over retouch. We're going to go over how to consult for a retouch. We're going to talk about the how-to and timing and planning of the service. So I want you to take a moment and write down 5 things that you need to know within a consultation to perform a retouch, to formulate a plan for a retouch. What do you already know that you need to find out? So at least 5 things on your paper for a retouch. All right, Andy, one thing you have on your consultation questions or what you need to discover?
I put one as asked if they want like great blending or like full coverage.
So what kind of coverage we're doing with the retouch? Awesome. What's one thing you would ask?
Oh, I have my own plan. How I do. I can explain.
Can you just share one part?
Oh, in the beginning, I usually ask you about the client's experience. What's her regime, what she's doing, and what she doesn't like about her hair. So this is important for me. And then the second part, it's definitely I have to figure out how much gray hair he has, because it's gray-haired clients like bread and butter. They come and crack the clock.
Yes. Awesome. How about for you? What's one thing that you're going to ask?
Like their regrowth, like how many times they need to come for in between appointments.
How often?
Yeah.
They're currently coming. Okay.
However, it really was a retouch. I can say it, but I just want to know better my client. What is the time?
So you're saying you visibly can see the grow out, but
Yeah.
you're asking how long
Yeah.
has it actually
Yeah.
been?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So there are 3 parts to consultation that you need to discover. One is history, which you touched on a little bit. One is desire. And one is, which you're not going to ask, this is what you need to learn how to discover professionally, is the condition of the hair type. What is the canvas you're working on? So the actual, so I'm going to call it canvas, but that is what you're dealing with. Because they're an appointment for a retouch, but they come in and they're not a retouch at all. That's a different consultation in itself, right? So today's class is a basic retouch class, but if someone gets on your appointment book that is a retouch and you are not capable of doing that, how do you handle that? They gave you 30 minutes for a retouch and they are a color correction or they are a foil. How are you going to professionally deal with that?
Be like realistic with them, like. just
Be
tell them-
real, be honest. Are you going to squeeze in a color correction in 30 minutes? No. What could you do for them today?
Maybe
Who
reschedule,
knows? It could be lots of things, right?
Like
So
reschedule. for
you
another time.
are definitely going to reschedule for a color correction or something that is not reasonable in that time frame. But what could you offer them today? Maybe you can offer them a Malibu service. Maybe you can offer them a gloss to blend things today, but don't put yourself in a box with whatever you offer them today for that next appointment. If a gloss is going to cover up issues that you then have to remove, maybe that's not the answer. So being honest and real from the jump with your guest is 100% important. Where you're a newer stylist and we are a team, if you're in over your head, offer a senior stylist and be real about that. Don't feel embarrassed about it. Maybe you can team up with that senior stylist to do the job together. But if it's a color correction or it's a highlight or you just really don't even know where to go with that appointment and they scheduled online a retouch and they're not a retouch, be real and genuine and honest with them, and your guests will appreciate that more than you getting it over your head. You're in problems. Their hair is now in a crisis situation from what you've chose to do, and you have to bring in a senior stylist anyway. Does that make sense? So you lose nothing by bringing in a senior stylist because of the way we're paid, correct? We all know that, right? It's a team environment. So by bringing in a senior stylist, the company wins, you win. Does that make sense? And everybody, I don't know about you, but how many of you are worried about social media and somebody trashing your name on social media? Is that like a real thing for you guys? I've had some people that are like, they don't want to do anything because somebody might say something bad about them on social media. Okay. Because that can ruin your name from the jump. So some people are scared about that. So anyway, the first is realizing, what is this appointment? Is this appointment correct and correctly booked? If they booked online, sometimes it's not. Our front desk staff and phone calls does really good about managing that. But just making sure you have a way out of the conversation professionally. So now we know we're in for a retouch. So we're not doing highlights, we're not doing anything else. So we're gonna start with what observations you're gonna make about their canvas. So what things are you, as a professional, need to know about their hair? You know when the stylist is like feeling their hair and talking, they're not just like la-di-da, Barbie doll, I'm playing with you. They're doing things. What are they observing?
Their scalp analysis.
Okay, so you're doing a scalp analysis. Every guest, every time, not just a color guest. And what are you looking at on the scalp?
For like, I don't know, abrasions and like stuff that they, what if they can't have?
What if they can't have color? What would make them not be able to have color that day?
You know,
Open wounds.
Lice.
Lice. They're leaving. Have a good day. What else might prevent that? Dandruff?
No.
Okay, so they can have it if they have dandruff. Oily scalp?
Yes, they can have.
They can have color.
Sometimes if they have too much product, don't you have to like wash them out because it's not.
Correct. So if we really want clean, dry hair. If it's, 10-day-old hair, that's not, that used to be the way, right? That used to be the way. Oh, dirty hair, it's better for the color. That's not the way. Clean, dry hair. But so if there's a lot of product in it, yes, you're gonna have to shampoo it first.
Yeah, I've had that happen.
But they still can get their service if there's time allowed for that. When you're working by yourself, that timing is important. That 15 minutes of shampooing, rough drying, coloring might screw up your whole day. So something to be mindful of. So we're looking at, can they have the service today? Is there any recommendations I can make based on their scalp analysis? If they have dandruff, do I need to make a recommendation? Do they have oily scalp? Maybe digging into that within their regimen. But can they have the service? Can't they have the service? Scalp analysis. What else are you looking at? Their regrowth. Okay, so they're in for a retouch. So how much regrowth do they have? How long has it been? So your observation is regrowth, which then spikes a question. How long has it been since you had your hair colored? What's your plan? Do you want gray blending? So these spike questions. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're looking at their regrowth. When we're looking at the regrowth, we're deciding how much gray they have, especially here. We have a lot of gray hair clients, right? What are we determining when we look at their gray? Percentage of gray. That matters for formulation. It doesn't matter for the application today. This matters for next week formulation. Okay? What else are we looking at in our observation of canvas?
What type of hair?
When you say what type of hair, tell me. So we're looking at texture. Why does that matter for a color service?
Because
How much color you're using.
because you can use less color. The preparation, I mean.
Yes. Okay. So for density is how much hair there is, right? So for density, if they have 10 hairs on their head, they don't have a lot of hair, we don't need a lot of color. For texture, it's how fat or skinny one hair is, fine, medium, or coarse. And these are all in formulation, but we're talking about them today as we prepare for that. In texture, it determines how strong the color should be or weak the color should be based on the hair strand. So fine hair is like angel hair pasta, and coarse hair is like linguine. You don't boil them the same amount. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about texture, you're talking about how strong your formula needs to be to get your end result. When you're talking about density, how much you need to put in the bowl for color waste. And I was saying this morning, we're gonna start an average retouch at 1.5 ounces of color to 1.5 ounces of developer, which means if you mix in grams, roughly 45 grams to 45 grams, or 1.5 ounces to 1.5 ounces. What are they mixing at Bayfront when you mix with them? Are they using ounces or grams?
Ounces.
Ounces? Are you using ounces too?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm probably the only one who like flips the scale underneath. It makes everybody mad. I just like the whole numbers. So anyway, so that would be the amount. I want you to start watching when you're rinsing color bowls, how much color are we throwing away? I can tell you it's a lot and it's too much. So I want you to be conscientious of that, because I want you to think about it this way. The more color we throw away, the less money we have to get raises. So that's how I want you to really think about it. That is money just being thrown down the drain. So we have a lot of it here, and it's still like, it's on my mind constantly. But anyway, I know it's all three. I want to like have a contest to see who has the least amount, but that's a different story altogether. Okay, so these are things we're analyzing. What else are we analyzing on the hair? Okay, so we're doing a retouch. There's hair here that we're matching. What question do we need to ask about this hair first?
If they,
If the client wants to keep the same tone.
Do they like what they have? Is it faded? How faded is it? You can find that from pictures of themselves. That's my favorite thing now that we have selfies everywhere, is pictures of themselves. This is how I had it when I had my hair done. This is how I like it. I have some clients that have files of themselves, which is fun too, because I can see like 20 years ago. I'm like, okay. You're deciding what level they are. How would you determine level? With what? Say it again.
Level finder?
Level finder. Does everybody know what a level finder is?
Swatches?
It's in the swatch book. It's the 1 through 10 level finder. On that level finder is also gray percentage, and we'll dive deeper into that in formulation. I just want to kind of touch base on how we do that. Okay. So we need to know what level they are and what level we're going to. There's one other thing about the hair that we need to decide. You kind of touched on it. What's the other thing we need to know besides level? Tone. And those are all things in observation. Anything else you might observe? What?
If they have bands, like not bands, but like I've had people like at school, like they'll like do it, and I can see like they're different. I don't know, like if you can.
If there's different colors
Yeah.
along the way, they did different things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that matter?
It does matter.
Yeah.
You're doing this, but once you do this, this is your hair.
Can I have one
You
thing?
did it.
Yeah.
Eliza does my hair at Robert Philadelphia. Band.
No, that's
What
what
could
I'm
you
saying.
do to solve that?
I don't want to say the wrong thing.
You can say the wrong thing. It's okay.
I don't know, can you
Use
tone
the
it?
toner.
Okay, so you could gloss it.
Yeah.
Right? Or glaze it or tone it. We use those words interchangeably, depends who you're talking to in the industry world, but I would call that a gloss because
Okay,
you're
gloss.
deepening the all over color. You're not toning it in the sense of like changing the blonde
Okay.
and
yeah.
toning
Okay,
the
gloss,
blonde.
yes. That makes sense. You're the first person to explain it to me. 'Cause I always thought
Gloss,
it was
glaze, toner, refresh. They're called lots of things. You're using the same product in the bowl, are you not? I mean, you guys see
Yes.
when you're mixing and putting it on at the bowl or putting it on as a gloss at the chair with your stylist. It's the same color.
Yeah.
It's just used at different timings with different words. So if you're confused by it, what do you think your guest is? Do you think they know what it is?
Some of them.
Some of them do, but if they call it something, you have to investigate. I want a gloss today. Well, what does that mean? What are they looking for? So just make sure the terminology is what they think it is, or. And some people say, I don't like toner, and it's like, well, what's toner? What do you mean? You know, so it's just diving into what they think it is. So not only are you looking at what you're doing here, you're looking at other opportunities. If they have banding, we can offer a gloss. If
Their end of
if their ends are lighter
And they want
and
to match.
faded and they want it to match. If they have highlights, potentially doing highlights on their next visit. If they have, you know, what could you be looking at to upsell today? What could you be looking at towards the future of your relationship with them? So those are the things that you're looking at when you're observing. The other thing that you want to look at, and sometimes this happens for senior stylists, so something to be aware of as an assistant. You take the guests back, you cover them all in black, and I've never seen them before. And when I take their cape off at the end, I'm like, oh, that's who they are. There's something to be said about the way they look when they walk in. Their outfit will tell you, are they a bold person? Are they more conservative? You can take some observations from that because you don't know the person the first time you're doing their hair. So you have to identify like who this person is, and they're asking me for fire engine red today. Probably not. I'm not gonna, does that make sense? Like just really trying to hone in on this person. And their hair is not the only observation, it's just kind of who they are and how they represent themselves is helpful since you don't know who they are. Because they're gonna say, what do you think? And it's like, well, what I think and what you might like are two different things. So then you have to dive deeper. The other observation I want you to make is their haircut. And we're only doing a retouch today, so that's probably going to go with any haircut, right? Because the goal of the retouch would be to match the previous color and get rid of their skunk line. However, what does their haircut look like? Are they going to ask me about their haircut when I'm halfway through their color service and they think about it? They're going to ask you opinions. So looking at their haircut, is it pleasing for them? And just, do they need a haircut today? Is that something that they should be getting as well? Are they down for just a blow dry? Do they need a deep conditioner today? Would that support my color? So that when they leave, if they had banding, they don't when they leave because I've educated them and I've taken care of them. Does that make sense? So, you know, observing your client. Observing and make suggestions. Does that make sense? History. What do we need to know about their history? When was their last appointment? What else do we need to know? It's a really big one. We've never done their color before. What do we need to know about their history?
How often they're coming back?
How often are they coming back? Because the choice that you put here can look bad in 2 weeks if they have a lot of gray. Yes? So how often are they coming back? But what is this? What color is this? Is this box color? Is this professional color? What have they been doing to this? And if it looks, and we rarely see this anymore, but if it looks dull and there's a feel to it, almost like when you have well water, you know, when you've washed guests with well water, there's a feel to that hair, and they've been doing box color, there is metallic salts in that. Do you know what happens if you mix aniline derivative tint, which is what we use, and metallic salts? Oh, come on, this is a school question. Dig deep into your state board testing. It smokes and melts. It has happened to me once. It is in Just for Men hair color, and someone put it on their face. And then they wanted me to do their face, and thank God they liked stubble, because that's all they had left when I was done.
It melted off?
It melted to that point.
Oh, wow.
It's only happened to me once. It's not in many box colors, but there are a few that it's in. The color looks like shoe polish, like that men's color, that's what it looks like when it has metallic salts. If you question what's on their hair and they don't know and you're really truly concerned, you need to do a test strand. So that's why I say that, not to scare you, because I'm doing hair 20 something years. It's only happened to me once. Most people don't know what they have on their head or if they used it, but it's a safe bet if they've been going to a salon. If they're a retouch, they're probably that client. Most of your first retouch clients are going to have formulas, because that's what we do, is make sure that you feel good about that service and they've already been here and they know what to expect and they have a formula in the computer, and we try to make life a little easy in those first few guests, right? But just something to think about is, am I really evaluating the hair? Most box dyes now do not have that, and it's a non-issue. But the stir kind, that's like liquidy, I have a client who does her brows herself, and she uses that, and I refuse to put anything on her brows because I'm afraid they'll melt off. Because I'm like, I don't know. I said, so the only way I could do your brows is if that completely grows out. If you just let them go gray. She's like, I can't do that. So guess what? I'm not doing your brows because they're not smoking on my watch. So history is previous color, and what is their history of maintenance? Desire, we've observed all these things. What do they want to see? What color do they want? So both lightness or level and tone. They're not going to use level, so you have to make that observation based on what you see here and what they're telling you. What are you capable with once the hair is colored? So a guest comes in like me, they have 50% gray, and they say, I want to be blonde. Can you retouch them blonde? You're shaking your head no. Tell me why you cannot.
Because you can lift one level with the color.
You mean here can lift one level?
This is your color and she's blonde.
And she's got a root and she wants to be blonde. Is that capable today?
No.
So once you put color on hair, what's the rule? Color doesn't lift color. What does that mean? What does lifting mean?
It doesn't lighten it?
It doesn't lighten it. Permanent color cannot remove or lighten permanent color, or demi-permanent color for that matter. Okay? So when they have color here, you have to use a removal if they want to be lighter than what they see here. You have to use some sort of removal process. That's why it's called permanent color, because it's permanently in there and we have to go in and remove it. It may have faded. It may be one level lighter now than when they started. 4 weeks ago, the sun may have faded it up one level, but you're not going to put color on this and make it lighter. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So your only capabilities with a retouch is to match or go darker. Those are your only choices. Otherwise, you're doing something else. You with me? So when they say I want to be lighter, you go, oh, well, that's not a retouch today. And you're having a different conversation. Okay? You can go lighter through highlights. Maybe they just want an overall look of lighter. You can put some highlights in there. Maybe they truly want to be multiple levels lighter, and that's a process that's not going to happen in a retouch. Yeah.
What is that stuff where I had someone come in, they have that mousy, brown with their braid, they're growing, but they're blonde, and we put that, it's blue, it's like a high lift or whatever, and it makes them light-ish, and it matches.
Oh, so they're naturally brown, but they leave blonde because they have blonde down here.
Yes, and then it turns them it matches their
It does
blonde.
match. Okay, so what is color on virgin hair capable of? How many levels of lift?
4?
4.
Okay.
If you use 40 volume with color, it lifts up to 4 levels. Use 30 volume with color, it lifts up to 3 levels. 20 volume is gray coverage and up to 2 levels. 10 volume can lift up to 1 level. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So if this is blonde and this is brown, and we're talking a 7 to a 10, can I make this a 10? Yes, with 30 volume and the right formula.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So we'll get into that with formulation
I
much
get
more.
confused, that's
But
true.
I'm glad you asked that because it's important to understand that I can do a retouch and make this blonde if this is blonde
Yeah.
if I'm within 4 levels.
Do you guys have that with Lola?
We have high lift
Do you guys
and we
that?
have permanent color, which both are capable of up to 4 levels,
Okay.
depending what you're trying to do.
Okay. I'm sorry. but
No,
yeah,
no,
because
that's-
at school I get so confused when I
This
get
is
those
about
names like that.
application and understanding
I
what
know.
you're capable of with application. What goes in the bowl, we'll deal with next week.
Okay.
But it's just about understanding if they're on your book for a retouch, what can I do? You are capable of matching this with color. A bleach and tone is different. So if it's more than 4 levels, it is not a retouch appointment.
So what if they're blonde and you're doing like a retouch but with bleach? Does
Then that is a bleach retouch, which is different.
Okay.
A bleach retouch requires a toner after, requires smaller sections. Your developer in your bowl is different.
Okay.
It doesn't control lift. Your developer controls speed. So it's totally different.
Okay. Sorry.
No, no, because sometimes it gets put in on as a retouch and it's a bleach and tone, and those are 2 different appointments. They require more watching. Retouch you can set and forget. 35 minutes done, 45 minutes done. I walk away, nothing magical is gonna happen over there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A bleach retouch, you walk away, magic's gonna happen, and you gotta go back and check it.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? So, so that's what I mean by that. Getting takeaways here. He's just taking money and giving money. No
It is
worries.
okay though, like if their time's at 35, it's okay if we leave them to like 40. Because once it's processed, they can't go any
It is not progressive, so it's not gonna go darker.
Yeah.
It is not. If they're gray coverage issues, you can leave it on for 45 minutes for gray coverage issues with Lola. But the standard timing is 35 minutes. But if they sit for a couple of minutes, in
That's
salon
okay.
reality, they are sitting. If you take it off early, you potentially hinder your results. You haven't given it its full time to do what it's supposed to do. So you might not get maximum coverage. You might not get maximum lift. You might not get maximum tone. So if you're doing a redhead and you take them off at 30 minutes, but timing is 35, it might not actually be as vibrant as you want it. If you're trying to go lighter, it could be it didn't finish processing. So it might be light, but it didn't deposit the tone. So now you're dealing with brash that you shouldn't have had to deal with because you didn't wait 5 minutes. So with color, if it stays on a little bit longer, it's not progressive in the sense that it's going to get darker or lighter or brighter. But if you take it off early, you could be putting yourself in a bind. So if you've ever worked with me, I'm like 35 minutes. I don't ever say 30 minutes. And a lot of stylists run on that 30-minute processing time. And I'm like, it says 35. We're doing the full 35. I follow the rules, but there are rules you can bend and break. I'm a rule follower. That's how I operate in life. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird.
Sorry, yeah.
No, that's okay. What questions do you have about what you're capable of with a retouch? So if someone came in for a retouch, you would be able to look at them and say, I can do this. Yes, no, maybe so.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so it's really important to start looking at, you have these appointments every single day. You're working side by side with a stylist every single day. I need you to start listening to what they're doing and what they're offering and what is their professional opinion. What are they doing? What's going in the bowl and what's the end result? You can actually see this process 10 times a day, 20 times a day, if you're in tune to it. Don't let towels be the reason, folding freaking towels be the reason that you miss out on what went in the bowl. Now, I'm not saying don't fold towels. Don't tell anyone I said don't fold towels because Lord knows.
You guys are fast though. You guys are fast back there. You're like, what are you doing?
So here's what I will say, because remember there was like a day I was like, I want you to know what's in this bowl.
Yes.
Like we spent the whole day. You could just focus on it one day and get so much out of one day. Like here's going what's in my bowl. Look at her hair. She's leaving. Look at her hair. And we could focus on that in one day and you could have so much knowledge just from look at the book, go, okay, today she has, the person you're working with, right? He or she has 5 retouches and blowouts. I don't care about the blowouts. I'm looking at the retouches. So when she's doing that retouch, I'm paying attention to what's going in the bowl. What did it look like? How much grade did they have? Does that look like 50% to you? Does that look like 100% to you? So just take a focus for the day. So this week, make your focus retouches. That's what we're learning. That's what we're doing. There's a million of them going on in the salon, especially with season here, right? So just be observing what's going in the bowl. What's the formula? You need to be able to navigate the computer to know where is the formula, what is it, write it down. Whatever you need to do so you know that what they used is this. If you can't read a formula, you need to learn that this week because we're formulating next week. You've all been working with your stylist long enough that you have to know this information. How to write a formula down. If you're stylist, I call my assistant over and I'm like, hello, can you just jot this down? Because it's in my brain, I haven't written it down yet, I haven't put it in the computer, and guess what? Next time they come and they tell me they love the formula, and I look and it's not there, I'm mad at myself. But that happens behind the chair in real time. So I'll ask, my associate, please, can you write this down? So if you do that for them, 1, you're taking something off their plate. 2, you're educating yourself. This is how I write a formula down. This is how I enter it in the computer. Those things matter. You can't take a service if you don't know how to do that. Make sense? So you can already be practicing all of those things. Okay, so now we're going to talk about application. There's many ways to apply. How many sections did you learn to apply with? 4 or 2? 4 or 3? 4. 4. Okay, did you learn with clips? Do you use clips to separate the hair? Okay. With long hair, you can use clips. With short hair, you cannot. It's this long. There's, the first and foremost, you cannot charge a lot of money for a retouch if it's sloppy. So, I don't care how long it takes you to apply your color right now. I care about neat application. I care about saturation. So neatness and saturation with application are the most important. When I say neatness, I'm talking about your tray. Is there color slopped on the floor? Is there color all over your brush? When you're applying, what does your area look like and what does their head look like? That's a level of professionalism that you need to be aware of. Nobody wants to sit in a dirty mess, and they sure don't want to pay for it. If you're using a darker color, what do you need to put on the hairline? You should all be doing this already. Color guard, is that what they call it there? We call it service and pre-guard, whatever. Everybody, you know what I'm talking about. So we need to be putting something on the hairline. I have seen that put on sloppy, where it's dripping into my guest's eyebrows. What if they're getting eyebrow color? Now it's just dripping in. So neatness, that starts now. If your stylist hasn't stressed that, it matters. You need it thick enough that it's doing something, but thin enough that it's not dripping. And every stylist is different. So one stylist may tell you, I need that stuff on there. And other stylists may tell you just a little. But observe what looks the most professional to you. Who do you want to be like? Who do you want to emulate? When you look at their station, what does it look like and who do you want to be? That matters when people sit in your chair. So neatness goes from how you paint it on the head and the hairline. Is it into their brows? Did you put a level 5 and they're going to be stained and now you got to scrub it off? And I know all of you have scrubbed after somebody messy. Does it come off? If it's dark, does it come off 100%? No. They're leaving, if you're sloppy, with a shadow. And I know you guys have scrubbed, I've seen the red.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ah. And I have a couple of clients who, they don't want to see not one gray, they don't want color guard on there, they don't want, I mean, you guys know, I'm looking at you two because you're my clients, but they don't want any of that on. And I have to paint a level 5. Are you kidding me? Okay, great, awesome. And so I'm like tiptoeing around their hairline. But their response to me is, I would rather be stained than have gray. But I still, even with that statement, don't want them having ring around the color, right? So just being mindful of your neatness. So neatness and saturation. What does saturation mean?
Just the amount of the color.
The amount of the color. So the worst thing you can do is do a retouch and miss a spot. Then you didn't do a successful retouch, right? So making sure that you have clean, neat sections, that you're using consistent sections that are see-through enough that when you apply your color, it's being applied. Does that make sense? That you're not gonna have a holiday where you missed and then they move their hair and they're like, oh, there's my gray, awesome. Yes?
What, like pre-softening, like, would you,
Pre-softening would be an extra step for resistant gray.
yeah,
It's not something that you need for a
Okay.
standard retouch. A standard retouch you should be able to apply with even saturation, and you should be able to have coverage.
I've had people where like I did that and then sometimes like they'll get, I still see some gray.
So I'd first check saturation and make sure, because even what you think is saturated might not be saturated. So
But I use like the papers.
oh yeah, and some people have like the curly course, so
Yeah.
that could require some pre-softening in the front hairline. Yeah.
Can I go make a call though?
Of course. So,
Is that, so that's not because I'm not saturated, because I put like end papers, I'll smack.
so
I'll
if
even
you've
start first.
eliminated saturation issues, then it may be that their hair requires pre-softening. That wouldn't be something with your level of experience that you would know. You'd have to figure that out. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you don't know if your saturation is on point. So getting feedback on that would help you. I know at school your teacher like, you got this and you're good, but those are the things that you can get help on. Is like, can you just check my saturation and make sure it's enough? Because maybe it isn't and you think it is. It's hard to tell, and we can discover that here through your models too. But so that would be the first issue of saturation, and then I would say potentially pre-softening. It also depends where you apply it first.
The front.
So if you're putting it on that area first because it's most resistant and you're still not getting coverage, then potentially it needs pre-softening. So another thing to observe is, do they have where it gets dark around here? Everyone wants to apply the front first on gray hair. However, not all gray hair is resistant. And then they get a dark band around the front. It looks darker. So being mindful of that observation. The standard is to apply the front first if it is gray. Yes. However, observe. Is it balanced? Do they have that dark band happening? I'm seeing it a lot here, especially with your level 7, 6, 5. So I'm not sure why that's happening, if it's just fine hair that's being applied over and over and over again, if they're getting the retouches done frequently. So we have some guests that are 2-week appointments. So I don't apply the hairline first on my 2-week appointments because it's just too much and there's this much gray. You know what I mean? So then where it overlaps in the previous color, they get a dark band. So those things are things to be mindful of. But standard application is to apply it to the hairline first if they're gray. But there's outside the standard. So I need to know the standard, observe the exceptions to the rule. Make sense? Okay, so I wanted to talk about tools because you guys all have different brushes at your different locations. So I brought out multiple. So there's this brush. Why would you use this brush?
Larger sections.
Larger sections. If you're using a tiny little retouch, they have like barely any regrowth, you probably don't want the biggest brush you can find. But some people like this for speed. But you should only be applying color to the very tip. So you have a wider section this way, not this way when you're doing a retouch. For this particular brush, I don't love it because the tail is fat. I find that when I'm using a fatter tail, it's harder to section to then apply my color. So I don't prefer a fatter tail. This one is also kind of a fatter tail. These are going to give me more precise results This one's super cute, but the glitter gets caught on the hair because it's rougher, so I don't love this one. So it's little things within your tool that could make your job harder. And I know that seems silly, but I'm particular about the tools that are on my tray, because if I have this one, I'm working harder because the glitter is catching the hair. That just seems silly when I have this one. It's skinny, I can get a nice clean line, and it's gonna slide on the hair. So figure out the right tool that works best for you and know why and how it works for you. Try multiple ones. Today I would say try different brushes and each panel to see which one you like. If you're doing 4 sections, if you section in 4 quadrants, this at the top where the 4 panels meet is gonna be too big. So you're gonna have to like paint with the corner or something. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you use 4 sections. I use 2 sections to apply color. I divide down the middle and I do one side and then the other. That's just how I apply. It's not right, it's not wrong. So you can use 2, you can use 4, or you can use 3, which is well as application. I don't love 3 because I think this whole back, it's 1, 2, 3. The whole back is too much to manage for a newer stylist. So today, since you've been doing 4, you're gonna do 4. How are you gonna divide 4? Down the middle.
Like her, like a black.
And what determines front from back?
The ear. And
From the nose.
So the nose determines the center, but right behind the ear, just feel behind your ear. There's a lump behind your ear. It's not the tip of your ear, it's not the earlobe, it's not the front of the ear. In your bone structure, there's a lump. It's called your mastoid process. That is what divides the front from the back. So you're going technically from the highest point of the head down to the mastoid process, and that's where the hair direction shifts. So that's what you're looking at, and the reason I'm pointing that out is because for hair cutting, that's what divides the front from the back. So we'll just keep it the same for hair cutting and color, is that division. So your 2 front sections are smaller than your back 2 sections. You're going to use horizontal partings, and you're going to go from the top down. Yes, that's what you were doing. The way that you check your saturation is you cross-check it. So if you apply it horizontally, when you go back vertically, and you just lay it away from the face, from the back to the front, and see if you've missed any color. Okay, so this is my lovely gal. Well, Eliza, since you were here, will you measure me 3 ounces of conditioner? We're using conditioner today. I'm gonna use this brush because it's my favorite. But I'm gonna hand these around. I want you to also feel the bristles on the brushes are different. So that application may be different. Thank you. I'm going to use clips for you, but I don't, so I'm also going to show you how I don't use clips. So if you're clipping, I'm first going to section for clips. So when I'm thinking about that, when I'm talking about that, when I've done my consultation, I've done my observation, I'm ready to apply, I usually have my guests like this. I go mix my color and I start with my color, applying right away. However, if you're doing clips, we're going to section, and this takes extra time. So in a realistic world, how many minutes do you get for a retouch on the appointment book? 30. Some locations do 45. So you have 30 or 45 minutes. How much of that is your consultation?
For sometimes, like, if you know the client.
If it's a full starting new client, you have a built-in 15 minutes. When they're booked as a new client, you get 15 minutes for your consultation. When they're a repeat client, you have a 30-minute slot to do your retouch. So just something to be mindful of. So time is money. time is everything, and if you spend 45 minutes with this guest but you only had 30, the rest of your day is 15 minutes behind. And God bless, if you've worked with me and I'm behind, you know how that day goes. Awful. It's like catch up. Who has thin hair? Who can we catch up on? So you don't have to do these tight Zulu knots or whatever when you're sectioning. I find that with color it just takes extra time. So be using it so that it pulls the hair in the direction you want it to be and out of the way, but not necessarily, so it looks neat if you're using clips, but it doesn't have to be where you spend all this time. I've seen people spend 20 minutes sectioning. If that's too much, you don't have 20 minutes to section. You got less than 5.
20 minutes sectioning, just accurate.
You've been in color class. I've watched it. Even cutting sectioning. I mean, it's like 20 minutes and we're still sectioning. That's too much. So, how long should it take you to section?
2 or 3 minutes.
2 or 3 minutes. So, I want you to time yourself and go section 4 sections on your doll from the time you start sectioning. If you have to set up your tripod or whatever, obviously that's going to take some time. But so you have 5 minutes to set up and section. Move around. So we're going to start by outlining, and we're going to use 1/4 inch section. So I want you to notice my brush, like I already got it sloppy, but I want you to be mindful of like taking a bead across the bottom and not like, and then when you wipe, try to choose one area so that you can pick up your bowl at some point, or your associate can come by and pick it up and not get their fingers covered in color. Of course, having gloves on your hands, this is conditioner, so I don't. So I'm just going to tap across, then I'm going to bring this forward and outline here to separate back from front. Being mindful that this hair is in my control. I'm not getting color on this hair. If they have highlights and I'm doing their brown and I tap their highlight with the brown, that's when you get those weird spots. It's because of your application wasn't neat. And when you're painting the hairline, looking at painting the hairline. You're not painting the skin. Do you notice that I pull the hair back and away in my hand? Like I just tapped your face with color. So holding it back away so that you can have a clear view and not it fighting the hair. So my outline is done. I'm going to take 1/4 inch sections. When you're set up, make sure that your setup is conducive to helping you. So your tray should be to your right if you're right-handed, within reach, so you're not like, that's time. Keep it close to you and nice and neat. You're going to take 1/4 inch sections. You're going to use the tail of your comb, and you're going to apply to the root only. You want to avoid laying this down and painting. I'm painting into the other section. So when you're doing that, just be mindful, especially if you're working on a small retouch, which our clients a lot of times do come in with like a tiny little retouch. So just applying to the root, and you're applying to both sides using a 1/4 inch section that it should be visible through. Using tension on the hair so that you are in control of those ends. Don't be afraid to get more color for saturation. Now with the conditioner, sometimes it dissipates through the scalp and it looks like it's not saturated. So when I go back and check, it's hard to tell. With color, and you check it, it's going to be very visible that you missed it because you're going to have a holiday. Do you see my section size? Mm-hmm. Do you see how much product I have on there? And if you notice, like, the angle that you put the brush matters, because if you put it certain ways, do you see how I'm dragging the color off? It's staying on my brush. So when you put it on, you want to lay it and let it go. Does that make sense? So if the hair is, I can't even make it happen, but I've seen where new stylists drag and then the hair sticks in the brush. Maybe you don't have enough tension on the hair, or maybe the angle of your brush is not appropriate. See what happens when I do it. But if you cannot spread conditioner through hair, you will not spread color, because color is a little bit thicker than conditioner.
May I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Seems like all your section like see through,
Yes.
so you can put in the hair.
You can see that it's hit the previous section and below. The difference, you asked that question about the difference between a retouch with bleach or, so one of them is timing, but in application, you're using a thinner section with bleach because bleach is thicker. And it doesn't spread the same way because of that powdery mix as color does. So this is, once you get this, it's pretty basic. You're just doing the same thing over and over again. So it's really about mastering the section size, the neatness of your application. Now remembering that when you section with your tail, there's color that's getting on there. So try to avoid putting that tail in places you don't want color. Now, see the width of this section? If I was using the wider brush in this section, I'd be struggling to not paint it in areas I don't want it painted. Now with color too, when I'm doing a retouch, I'm looking for a clean, neat section, but I'm not focused on a resectioning. I'm not braiding the hair, I'm not cutting the hair. So if there's like, if it's not perfectly straight and it's on a slight diagonal, if it's a clean section and see-through, it's fine. Don't like stress yourself on making it perfectly straight. Does that make sense? I'm going to spin this a little as I move down because I really want you to be able to see the last section and what I do unique to the last section than any other for neatness. So 20 minutes is about what you want to spend with your application. Now, I'm saying that for reference of timing, not for reference of speed through it. Neatness and saturation come before timing. So quality versus quantity. But if you take 50 minutes to apply your color, what happened to that in the bowl? It's oxidized. So it's not, the color molecule in the bowl goes from this tiny little molecule and it grows and gets locked in the hair. It can't get in the hair because it's already grown. So that's important to know. If you're taking too long for your application, you need to remix. Don't let it sit there. Okay, so for these last two that are right around the ear, I don't do this. If I paint down, I'm potentially painting their ear. So I take a thin enough section, I make sure that it's applied above, I bring it up, and I just apply up and away from the ear. Same thing.
So basically only on one side.
On the underside, now making sure that you get saturation, just because you're applying to the one side, but it allows you to be neater with your application. And I mean, this doll head's hairline is always weird, as we know, but just to practice the appropriate application. So after you do this side, where would you go? To the other front panel. I'm not going to apply that. It's the exact same thing. I'm going to apply this back panel because you have like little uniquenesses in here. So now if you're doing 4 sections, you're working in this little like pie area, if you will, and I find like it gets messy. So I work off of the center part. So first I'm going to apply my outline first. Pulling the hair in the direction that I'm away from where I want to be. And I should not be bending my back. You would pump your chair up and adjust your client. And I want you to be mindful of that from the start, because if you do it from the start, yes. But being mindful of your body position from now moving forward, because you'll be better at that if you're mindful of it now. And again, same thing, I'm not gonna paint that bottom because that's gonna sit on the neck if I paint it now. So I'm gonna do that bottom up only. Especially like when they have those baby hairs that come down here, I'm kinda gonna graze over them. I'm not gonna lay it flat on the skin. And often, there's no pre-guard under there. By the time I get there, there's no pre-guard, and it's like just slapping color on dry skin back there. So I work off of this horizontal part. So I'm going to stand to the side so you can see. I would normally be standing right there. But coming this way, do you see how much bigger the section is instead of working off that little peak? Now if you want to work off of that little peak, by all means, but I just find it faster and easier to come across this top section. Do you guys shampoo with gloves at Bayfront? Like when you're shampooing out dark color, do you use gloves? When it's dark color, okay, good. Just, I'm saying that because that also makes you look neater, like when you go to cut hair, if you don't have color all over your fingers and stained skin. And then I just pivot that down so I'm working towards the horizontal. Not sure if you see what I mean by that. But it's just a bigger section this way, so I don't have to like use the toe or heel of my brush in a little tiny corner. If you notice, I didn't have enough product there, so I'm going back to apply it. So don't stretch product. If 3 ounces isn't enough, then go back and mix more. Because the worst thing is having a holiday and not enough saturation.
And I have a question.
Yes.
So when you're doing a retouch, the way you section, do you go based off of how the color will like look?
Nope.
With the parting, or doesn't?
It has no bearing. I'm covering every hair on this head. The only purpose of sectioning is for a plan and being able to cover everything and not missing a piece. So I don't need to worry about the part. That's more when I'm foiling and how those lines of color are gonna look. Every hair on this head is getting colored. So your sectioning is based on the ability to keep organized, like a plan and organized sections so that you cover everything. Good question. But if you notice my line, like sometimes it's perfectly straight and other times it's like not, but they're neat and clean, and I have color penetrating both sides. What you want to avoid, this is something that I see a lot of people do, because they want to make sure they have saturation. Is they go like this. I'm just moving it around and I'm dragging it further than I need it to be, making it thinner. It's more on the scalp than it is the hair now. So paint it, put it, leave it. You know what I mean? I mean, if you didn't have enough color, by all means, go back. But if you don't see color coming through, then you're not using enough color. If your section gets too wide, do you see what I did there? Instead of trying to manage a larger section, I went as far as I could manage, and then I picked up that extra piece after.
Do you have a limit how much color you mix? Like 30 grams for each head? Or?
No, there should be. There should be as a salon wide, but I say a starting reference point is 1.5 ounces or 45 grams for a retouch. No
So
more.
45 and
You
So
shouldn't
you
have.
need
You shouldn't
45.
start with more than that. If you need more, because for some reason, maybe it's, then go remix. Unless you've done their hair before and you know, I need more than that for this particular guest. But that's something that you would put also in your formula when you're mixing and writing that down. If I don't put measurements, it's because it's a standard amount. So for example, if I'm only using one color in my bowl, I just put 6 stroke 0 with 20 volume. But if I have multiple, then I'll add the measurement. Or if they have a ton of hair,
do you charge more? Because you use more color?
there is an extra color charge. It's not used. It should be used universally, but it's not.
Some people have pick here, it's timing and color wise it's allowed.
Correct. Now, where I'm at this point, I need to tilt her head. I'm like working harder, not smarter, so I need to raise her and tilt her head. Oops. And then I can have a better view. At no point should there be so much color on my brush that it's like a mess or floppy, or I can scoop this and section because of the amount of color I have on my brush. And like, do you see how I worked my bowl? I started in this top corner and then I slowly like edged my way in. That's one way of just being neat without dipping your brush in the whole bowl. If you want to see like perfection of neatness, watch Brenda. Brenda is like, I can't even be as neat as her. When I watch her, I'm like, oh, you would think I'm sloppy. So if you want to know what perfection of it looks like, watch Brenda. Have you worked with Brenda? No.
Oh, I'm working with her now.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I'm gonna be-
Wonderful.
Well, I'm not her assistant.
Good.
Yeah. She's already having me not mix, but prepare her formulas.
Yes, like put the tubes in the bowl and ready to
Yeah.
go, and all she has to do is mix it.
Yeah,
That's a great way to learn color.
yeah, so. It makes, what I need to learn more is, memorizing like the natural color line. But
Oh, like
I
what the
already-
stroke system is.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
already, know the, tones, so.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. But yeah, she has a particular way of
Yes,
working.
she does.
Yeah. She tells me every time, I do it the right way, I follow the rules. I'm like, oh yeah, I know this.
Yeah, if you want to know a thing about Wella color, ask her. She knows the exact, like verbatim from the book.
Do you ever take from like the bottom and like go up both? So like bottom, top, and do both?
Up and down.
Are you talking about under here?
Everything is up.
No, like go back to like where you
Here.
Yeah, have you ever like take it and go take it both?
Oh, like this?
Yeah.
I don't. And the reason I don't do that, I've seen where people like go
Someone
like
told me you
this.
did that.
You're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't. It is a faster application, but in my mind, the cuticle's going one direction.
Okay.
So I don't like to apply against the cuticle and with the cuticle. I don't know if that means anything. But in my mind, that doesn't make sense. So I've always tried to apply both directions with the cuticle. Does that make sense?
Okay.
You blow dry hair that way, why wouldn't you color that hair
Yeah.
that way? But I have seen where people, to speed up the time, they start at the top of the retouch and they work down to the bottom of the retouch.
Someone told me you did that. I was like, really? I don't.
Have you ever seen me do that?
Well, I don't know. I haven't watched it. so
Okay,
I
well,
don't know.
I want you to watch now when I'm in like action, and you'll see like my corners that I cut. They're not much, but there's some.
Okay, cool. Monday.
No, that's a great question because it is something that people do. Okay, so now I would be done. I've done all 4 panels, pretend. So I'm gonna lay this all down. One of the things when it's processing, if this has highlights, we gotta make sure we didn't get any color on it. But also, it needs oxygen to process, so not smashing it down. If they have long hair, I've seen where stylists clip it up so that it's not like in their face. If they're clipping it up, it's gotta be loose. And you don't wanna like clip into the color because then you're like altering where it's going and mashing it together. So it can be done, but it needs to be done neatly. So I'm gonna cross-check my color. So I'm gonna start in the back and I'm just going to separate. And at this point, if I applied, I'd go to the first section I applied because the color would already be oxidizing and I could be able to see if my saturation was on point. Do you see how this is here? There's color there, it's visible. It will shift and move with the conditioner, but you can see that I have it. And you wanna just cross-check yourself. And the big point to check is like behind the ear, sometimes that gets missed. Around the hairline, sometimes that gets missed. But if you notice, I'm also like laying it here so that as I come around, I'm gonna take this section out. I'm gonna lay this back away from their face so it's more comfortable for them to sit. And if you missed anything along the way, you could reapply. Also, like you were talking about those coarse like hairs that happen to be in the front, I will sometimes repaint the hairline just to make sure that that's laying back. With all the movement that I've done, sometimes I'll just come in here, and especially if it's a client who has resistant gray, I'll just retouch that up and let that lay. What questions do you have? Okay, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to start your stopwatch on your watch, on your phone, whatever, and push stop when you're done from start to finish. I'm gonna set a timer for, I'm gonna give you 40 minutes, but individually stop your timer so you know exactly what your timing is, but not rushing. Neatness, saturation. Any questions? Okay, go ahead. This week, from now until next Monday, I want you to observe 3 formulas, take before and after pictures, and write the formula down. So, you are working with stylists. This is your homework. Now you should be doing it every day, but I need 3 pictures. You're just gonna snap a picture of the root before, snap the root after, and what you put in the bowl, or the stylist put in the bowl.
Can I do it for school?
Sure. Okay. But root color only. I don't want formulas with highlights and lowlights and just what you did today, but what went in the bowl. And I want you to show me the written formula. So I need 3 of them. You have a whole week to do that.
Cake.
It's easy. If you do it, it's easy. And then this retouch application needs to be done to where you can do it in under 30 minutes neatly. So I don't know if that means you personally have to do it 20 times between now and next week, or you need to do it 5 times. But when you come back next week, you're going to set your doll up, you're going to section it, and you're going to show me where you are on this retouch next week. So whatever that means, because all of you are at different levels, but I'm going to be checking neatness, saturation, and timing. So your focus this week is to learn how to do the retouch in a timely manner. It is a very basic application that's overlooked, but you have to be able to do it well. Understood?